Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Myths and Meaning, a storyteller's hearth. And we're back again. I hope you're not as soggy as we are down here, but it's a bit wet and it's a bit damp. It's that kind of like lovely rain that when you step out in it doesn't look too bad, but within 5 minutes you're absolutely soaked to the skin. You come back in again, and it stops. Think, oh, I'll just nip out, and it starts again. No snow, unfortunately. Just loads and loads of rain. The garden's soggy, all the ground's soggy, but what can you do? It's good for the aquifers, it's good for the reservoirs, it's good for the trees, it's good for the land. Because down here in the south of England, it gets really arid and dry in the summer. And reservoirs tend to dry up because lots of people use them. So it's me, Wild Scouts. Hello again. And the sounds you can hear in the background, that's my local beach. I was down there yesterday. And just before I swam, I kind of like went to look at the sea and I just listened to her and thought I'd record her. It's like a 3-minute meditative recording of the sea, and it's on the beach where all of this began, really, where my story of telling stories began. So I was on that beach and I went for a swim with a fellow swimmer, and we came out, we had a chat, and I recounted some of my own personal tales from when I lived up in Scotland. And she suggested to me that perhaps I should read stories and perhaps retell them, and I might be all right at it. So I kind of took her word for it, and she very kindly lent me the books. And the books were from a lovely, wonderful man called Duncan Williamsons. And his stories, I read his stories and they stuck to me like glue. And to this day, from 4 years ago, the first story I ever read, it's a long story, which I will share you at a later point. It's that's still with me. I still carry that. I still carry all of them. And there's a lot I could say about Duncan Williamson. There's a lot I'm going to say about Duncan Williamson, because for every time I share a story of his with you, I'll give you some more, not information, I'll tell you more of his story, because his story is a story within itself, and it's remarkable. And I am forever grateful of what he's done for this oral tradition of our blessed Isles. So I'm going to recount a story. It's one of my favourite selkie stories, and it's up on the west coast of Scotland, and it's called the Master Seal Hunter. So up, way up on the west coast of Scotland, there was a beautiful sandy bay with white sands and rabbit mown grass going down to the shore. It's a rocky wee bay with a great peninsula heading out into the Atlantic. And on this little bay there was a wee croft. But the wee croft was overlooked by Ballockhead. And Ballockhead was the highest cliff for miles and miles around, and it lay 3 miles to the south. It was prominent on the skyline. And people would come from far and wide to look at the view, to be astounded by the view. But the locals, they used it as a lookout. They used it as a lookout to see if their loved ones and their kin would come back on the boats that they sailed out on, to fish and to supply. So down in this wee croft, there was Angus. And Angus, he had a couple of pigs. He had a few sheep and he kept a few chickens, and he had a pretty sparse vegetable patch. As even the brassicas were suffering, as it was the middle of winter. And as we animals kept him company, and he was happy enough. He was a bit of a lonesome man. He was there alone. No one to hand his craft down to, but that was his life. And he was a fisherman. But he was also a master seal hunter. And on him, he carried a knife. And this knife in his family's legend was said to be made by his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. And the skills and the needs to hunt seals was also passed down along with this knife. So there was Angus, with the skills of a master seal hunter, and with this knife that was made from his forefathers. It was a harsh winter. The seas were pretty unforgiving, and when it was calm, the fish were gone. And every day he'd go out and he'd have to go out a bit further and further and further. But alas, his nets were always empty. So one day he was out, way, way beyond the peninsula, far, far out to sea, dropping his nets, bringing him in, dropping his nets, bringing nothing. Not even a morsel. So, what am I going to do? Me brassicas, me veg, they're not coming through. My animals are hungry. I'm hungry, but not catching fish. What am I to do? So he brings his nets in and he sets himself back to sail. Well, he rows himself back to the wee bay. And as he's coming in closer to the peninsula, he sees something right on the edge. He can't believe his eyes. It's the biggest seal that he'd ever seen in his life. As he rowed closer and closer, he says, "Oh, come on. There she is, there he is. There's my keep, there's my winter. There's my answer, there's my solution." For to be a seal hunter, you have to have a hard heart. No compassion for these beautiful animals. No empathy for them, otherwise, what use would you be? So he moored his wee boat downwind of the sea, and he crept. He deftly crept and crept and crept and got closer and closer, and as he got closer he was like, my word, that is a monster of a seal. That is going to not just keep me for a winter, that'll probably keep me going through the summer too. The pelt, the fat, the meat. Oh, that's it, I'm sorted. So he crept up behind it, and crept and got closer and closer, and then he leapt into the sky and down, and thrust his knife into the seal's neck. And normally when this occurred, the seal just dropped. But this one, he reared up and sent Angus flying over. He's like, oh, come on, and he falls, and he comes to, and he looks up, and he sees the seal. He sees the seal's tail just going into the water. And Angus says, oh my goodness, I've lost my knife. I've lost the seal. I've got no fish. Oh man, I've got nothing left. So he goes to his wee boat and he sets it out and he rows himself back to the shore, forlorn, sad. Goes into his croft and he goes to the fire and he says his wee prayer to the fire. Because back in them days, the fire was all you had. And without it, you'd struggle, you'd probably die. So every time it was stoked, and every time new wood was placed upon it, a wee prayer was said, in honour and to respect the fire. So there he is, his boots off. He's poured himself a wee dram of whiskey and he's sitting by his fire, thinking of his plight. He says, oh, and the knife. What am I going to do about the knife? It's gone. He said, that seal. What? There's something about that seal. And he pours himself another whiskey. He puts his feet up in the storm. There's a storm coming. Starts slow at first. Just a stiff breeze coming through his shutters and through his doors. Because in them days there was no windows. Just shutters. Just shutters over the hole in the wall, if you like. And his door was kind of loosely fit and it wasn't hinged. It just sat on slants. The storm came coming in, and you could almost feel like the sods on his roof were moving. You could hear the rattling of his shutters, the door was always going to come off. He says, oh, well, at least I'm in. It's plumbing a hoolie out there. And he was right enough, because it was screaming, it was howling, it was raging. He settles himself down by the fire and sure, he kind of hears a knock. Oh, it can't be a knock. Not in this weather. So he gets up and he goes to the door and he lifts the door. And there, standing before him, is the most beautiful, beautiful man he'd ever seen in his days. Jet black, thick hair. The biggest brown eyes he'd ever laid out his eyes on. And a round face. And this man, he wore a fur coat from his neck all the way down to his ankles. And Angus was like, oh, come in, man, it's screaming out here, get yourself in, what are you doing? And the man says, well, for that I am grateful, sir. And he steps in. And as Angus puts the door back up, he notices that there's a horse out there. How's he got here in the storm with a horse? But he looks at the horse again and he can almost make out that the mane, it looks like seaweed. He says, oh man, must be the rain. And he puts the door back up again. He says, well, what are you doing out here? Why are you out in this storm? He says, well, it's my master, it's my king. And Angus says, well, what about your master? What about your king? And he says, well, my king, he wishes to speak to you. He says, what do you want to talk to me about? And he says, well, we've heard that you're a master seal hunter. And Angus says, well, I was, but I seem to have lost my knife, so I'm not much use here, especially in this storm. But tomorrow, if it's calm, I will go out and hunt seals for you if you wish. He says, well, my king, he wants 13 pelts. 13 skins of seal. And Angus can't believe it. He's like, 13? That'll keep me going for years if I do that. He says, aye, well, I'll definitely do that. So I'll start tomorrow, after the storm's abated. And the bloke's like, no, my master, my king, he wants to see you. He wants to see you urgently, he wants to see you now. And Angus is like, I'm not going out in that. You're having a laugh, aren't you? I'm not going to go out in that storm. I said, well, you must come, it's a matter of urgency. And sir, I must insist. And Angus took a look at this man. He was tall, and he looked strong, and he looked young, and he looked agile, and Angus says, well, I don't think I'll be able to do much against him. He says, oh, well, if you'd insist, I'll come with. So Angus dons his boots, ties up his laces, puts on his big coat. They go outside, they lift the door and go outside, and the door almost blows into the house. The wind's coming at them, it's sideways, the rain's coming in, there's hail, it's a hoolie of a storm that one that Angus, he can't quite recall being so bad. He said, man, we can't do this, but they were shouting at each other. So the young man, he got onto his horse, which looked remarkably like a kelpie. The old kelpie of the old Tales of the Locks. Angus, he's rubbing his eyes. I must be seeing things. I've had the whiskey. I've had a bad day. It's a storm. It can't be a kelpie. So he walked up to the kelpie, and the young man just grabs him by the shoulder and lifts Angus onto the back of the horse. And Angus can't quite believe that. Before he had a chance to think about it, it was off. The kelpie was off. It ran and ran up and up and up the hill, all the way towards the top of Balakid. Faster and faster and faster, and it got faster than the wind and faster than the rain, faster than the hail. And they ran in silence. They galloped in silence. And the faster and faster they went to the top, all the way. And Angus said, he's not going to stop. He's not going to stop. So he grabs the lad by the waist and holds on tight, and sure enough, the kelpie leaps off the giant cliff edge. Down and down and down and down they go. Further and further down until they go into the water. But they don't stop there. They go further and down into the water, past the fish, past some seals, all the way to the bottom. The kelpie carries on galloping, and behind them there's clouds of sand lifting into the sea. He just doesn't know what to do, and he has a wee look over the lad's shoulder. And there before him are two giant stone doors. And as they approach the doors, faster and faster, the doors slowly open slowly, wider and wider and wider, and they run through into this great hall. The kelpie stops, and the young lad grabs Angus again by the shoulder and drops him down onto the ground. And Angus is looking around, and he's like, where am I? And the doors just close behind him with a clunk. And just before him, standing there right in front of him, is the most beautiful woman he had ever laid his eyes on. With thick black hair, the biggest brown eyes he'd ever seen. And she too, she wore a fur coat. From her neck all the way down to her ankles. And she had the most beautiful, like moon-like face. It's Angus. Angus is like, I said, Angus, we have brought you down here. We have set you to task. She's like, well, I'm not too sure I'm much help for you lot, really, because it looks like you are the selkie people, and I'm just a poorly crofter and a poorly fisherman. I don't think I can help you at all. I said, no, Angus, you have done something and only you can undo it. I said, what do you mean? I don't understand. And she leads him by the arm into the great hall, and they're further into the hall. The walls are adorned with the most beautiful things, the gifts from the sea. With pearls and multicoloured seaweeds and giant shells, the likes that Angus had never laid his eyes on before. As they got further into the hall, they saw at the end a giant fireplace with a roaring fire, and around there was people. There was seals, there was selkies, there were people, but everybody looked forlorn. Everybody looked really sad. Everybody looked like something was deeply upsetting them. As he walked through, he saw before the fireplace a giant slab stone table. A thick slab of stone. And upon that stone table was the seal, was the giant seal. He says, "Oh, come on, that's the seal. That's the one that someone was stabbed on the peninsula." He says, "Angus, we need you to withdraw that knife, to take the knife out. For you have inflicted this upon our king, and only you can retrieve the knife and for him to heal, which is why we've brought you down to our great hall." He says, "Well, look, I'm no doctor by any means, and I've got a bit of an unsteady hand, to be honest with you, and I've just had a few drums of whiskey, and that Kelpie ride frightened the life out of me. I'm not too sure I'll be able to do this." He says, "Oh, you must, Angus, you must take the knife away from our king." So Angus takes a breath and he goes up to the king, and the seal, it's giant. You can now see exactly how big he is. The seal is enormous. He goes to take the knife, the seal turns and looks Angus straight into the eye. Angus feels very uneasy at this, and he starts to pull out the knife. He pulls the knife and he pulls, and it's quite in there. But as he's pulling it, you can see that somehow the bleeding's stopping, and it looks like it's healing, and he pulls the knife out slowly, and right enough, as he finally withdraws the whole knife, the wound heals immediately. Seal sits up and towers above him. She says, you and your family, Angus, we know of you. We have known of you for many generations. And we've left you to it. But not this time, Angus, not this time. We will not let you be." And Angus is scared out of his wits. He says, "Well, this is it. This is the end of me. This is the end of my days, and I'm locked in a kingdom under the sea." The king said, "Well, this is what we're going to do with you, Angus." Angus was all ears, for he wanted to leave that kingdom and go back to his little safe croft. So Angus, because you've come down, and because you've done what you've done, and you've cured me, and you've taken your knife from me, is that you're going to have to swear, Angus. You have to swear before me and my lady queen. Angus is like, "I'll swear anything. I'll swear absolutely anything. Just I just want to get out of here." He says, "You must swear, Angus, that you will leave me and my people alone forevermore. And you would go to the village and you would tell them this tale also. And you would tell them to leave us alone. For we are many in numbers, Angus, and we are of great strength. But we all also of compassion. We are of empathy, and we are of caring. So we're going to let you go. For you to tell this tale to all the people, so we are left alone once and for all." Angus was like, "Oh, goodness, of course I'll swear that." Then he bowed before the king and the queen, Selkie. So Angus, you must leave now. So Angus now takes himself back all the way down to the hall, towards the doors, and there's the Kelpie. And the young man sitting upon the Kelpie, and right enough, Angus gets close to the Kelpie, and the man leans down and grabs him by the shoulder and picks him up and puts him on the back. And the great doors open. Kelpie gallops through, again with clouds of sand coming up behind, floating in the sea. And they rise, and he gallops through the sea, the passing fish, the passing seals. You can see an otter fishing up on the surface, and out from the surface they come, and up, and up Balakid to the top. And then down they go, but as he notices that the storm's gone. It's flat calm, there's no wind, and they got it down all the way to the croft. So Angus jumps down from the Kelpie. And he's about to say thank you to the young man, but the young man's gone. Not a word, not a look, and the Kelpie's back up, galloping up to the top of Balakid. Angus was like, oh, come on. Did that really just happen? I've got to tell the locals, I've got to tell the villagers. So rather than go back to his croft, Angus about turned and he ran all the way to the village without stopping. And into the inn was packed with all the locals, with the fishermen, with his friends, with his distant cousins. And he tells them the tale that I've just told you, And from that day forth, nor Angus or the villagers ever even went near a seal, and when they did come, they had fish, they'd throw them a few fish. And somehow the fishing got better. And somehow the sea was a bit calmer and the sea was kinder to them. And everybody prospered. And there's Angus with his wee drum by his fire and his mastered hunter's knife tucked away on top of the shelf, never to be touched again. So there you go. I love that story. I actually love that story. It's a cracker. It shows that it's just a wee lesson. It's a folklore of getting on with your environment and it being symbiotic rather than for and against. So this is me, Wild Scouts, and in the meantime, listen to the waters and feel the winds. If you do like the tales, and you want to help me keep me half warm for that, then just give us a follow.